There you go, Diamond Blast. I've got a puncture. Something that's happened to all of us. If you ride a bike, you will get punctures. And this is not a tubeless tyre. This is a tyre with an inner tube in it, which an awful lot of people are still riding. So I thought what I'd do today in this video is just to show you some of the basics, or the basic procedure for changing an inner tube. I think most of you probably know pretty much how to do this, but there are one or two little tips, bits and pieces that I've picked up that make life a little bit easier, and hopefully will help make your lives a little bit easier. Now, the first thing to do, it's always a rear wheel, isn't it? It's never the front wheel, so we've got to get this wheel off the bike. And the way to do that is you need, this is a handy little tip to start off with. Put the saddle over your neck. It's not that heavy unless you've got a really heavy bike. And what we need to do is we need to get the chain down to the little cog here. So the way I'm going to do that is turn the pedals, obviously, and then I'm just going to drop it down there like that onto the little cog. The reason for doing that, it just means that we know where that chain is when we want to put the wheel back on. So it's really important to do that first of all. Then what we'll need to do is to undo the skewer here, and that's fairly easy. You just untighten it. On this particular bike, it's not the easiest to get out for a variety of reasons, but I'll show you. Now, what you need to do is most people try and do is they fiddle around with the chain here, do all sorts of other stuff. You don't need to do that. Once you've unloosened that skewer, it should just drop out. That's all you need to do. There you go, simple. So you just give it a punch. Now, what you've got to just decide is what you're going to do. Some people will turn the bike upside down. That's usually frowned upon. I don't particularly mind. It's up to you what you want to do with it. I don't do it because otherwise it means you're going to take your head unit off, because that can get scratched, whatever. So generally what I do is a simple thing. Is just lean it down, obviously with the derailleur upwards, not downwards. Then what we've got to do is we've got to look at this, and we've got to take off. So we're just going to let all the air out of that. And then what we've got to do is take the tyre off so we can get at the inner tube. Now, what I'm going to do now is get out my trusty tyre levers, and we'll start the process. Now, the problem today, or problem these days, is that tyre levers are not what they used to be in them old days. They tend to be plastic. This is a set of 2. You sometimes get a set of 3, obviously. And actually, they can be not very good, to be honest. They don't desperately work hook, but a bit of persistence can usually help. Right, so we've got the valve here. I generally start, there's no golden rule, but I generally start opposite the valve, because it should mean that it's a little bit easier to get off. And you put one in, and then the second in, and then lever that off there. Now, these have got little hooks which you can fit around the spokes, should you desire, but I'm not going to bother with that today. I'm just going to put that round like that. There we go. So that's the end of our tyre levers for the minute. We won't need those again. When we put the tyre back on, we never ever use tyre levers. Never ever. Because you'll end up with a pinch puncture. So where are we now? Yeah, okay, so we're at the valve end, which is where we need to be. And we're going to take out the inner tube. There you go. Out it comes. Now, at this point, what we want to do is find out where the puncture has occurred on the tyre, if we possibly can. So I'm going to get my pump out. For those of you that use gas, you can put a little bit of gas in. And what we're going to do is we're going to pump it up just a little bit, just to see if we can hear this. Just to see if we can find out where this must be a very slow puncture, because you can go round, you can feel it against your face. Sometimes the air is coming out. On this particular occasion, I can't find anything off the top of my head here. No, sometimes if it's a very small puncture, then you won't be able to do that. But the second thing then to do is to have a look round here. We'll have a look inside the tyre. We can have a look on the outside first of all, just to see if there's any obvious little bits of glass or flint. Yeah, there you go. There's one there. There's one there. Yeah, yeah. So there's a little bit of glass. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that out with, I'm going to do that with a little tiny thing that I'm going to put in here, and you'll see in a minute what I'm going to do. Okay, so yeah, that's not too bad. I can get that out fairly easily. There we go. Out it comes. Right, and we have a quick look underneath. Put that down there just to make sure there's nothing still in there. Again, just check around. Sometimes you get a couple of bits, but that all looks okay. So we're not going to get a second puncture straight away. So that's important. Now what we need is to fit the new inner tube. So here we go, is the new inner tube. I don't tend to use the dust caps or these. I leave it on so that doesn't puncture the inner tube whilst it's in my pocket. But I tend to take these off because they're just a pain in the backside, and they don't really do anything other than, I don't know what they do. They don't really do anything, but we won't throw them away. We'll think about. And then the secret then is just to give this a little bit of air, not massive amounts, just to fill it out a little bit. Makes it a little bit easier to put on. So we tighten that up, and then so we find where, I've lost it now, where is it? There we go, there. So we find where the valve pushes through, and we pop that in. There we go. And then we start at the top, and we just feed this around like that. Now, getting the tyre back on is one of the things that I know a lot of people really struggle with. And again, it's actually pretty simple. You can use your fingers at the top to start to fold this in. It looks like we've got a postman here who's going to come past us in a minute. Never mind. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm using my thumbs up to this point. I'm using my fingers, my thumbs, that's fine. Now when we get to this bit, which is the tricky bit, this is where the tyre gets difficult to put on. Okay, particularly if you've got, bonjour, if you've got tubeless ready rims or anything like that. So it can be tricky. Now if you try and start doing this with your thumbs, it's really hard. So unless you're the World Thumb War Championship, if you don't know what that is, Google it, then you're going to really struggle. So the thing to do is to use the palms of your hands, okay? So you just roll it. Look, easy, yeah? This is quite an easy tyre to get back on. Some are a lot harder, but the principle is the same. Hadn't gone on that easily, and I have to say that was pretty easy. Don't worry, don't panic, it's fairly easy, or relatively easy. Just what you would do is you just roll the tyre like this, roll it all the way down the outside just to push, and what this does is it works the tyre around the rim, and then you have another go at putting it on, and then so on and so forth. But just be patient and be persistent, and you will get it on. But remember, the key thing is to use the palms of those hands, because there's so much more power and so much more strength. If you use your thumbs, you use your fingers, you haven't got a chance. And as I said earlier on, please do not use a tyre levers to put it on, because you will get a pinch puncture, which brings us very nicely to the next part of the process, which is to check just around the rim, just to push the tyre back, make sure that inner tube, which remember we just inflated very slightly just to give it a bit of body, is not pinched. We look around here, yeah, all looks pretty good. All looks pretty good. Now one final thing, and this is the tip that I picked up only probably 2-3 months ago, which I'd never realised, is to push this valve right up into the tyre, yeah? Because that means that the tyre will then sit properly in the rim. If you don't do that, it may be okay, but there's a risk that the tyre won't sit, and you'll get a lump here, and you'll be riding along thinking, why is this road so bumpy? The reason is because the tyre's not seated correctly. Now, I'm very lazy, so I'm not going to I'm not going to use the pump to pump it up. What I'm going to do, because this is something that a lot of people also occasionally have problems with. If you do use gas, if you use pump, that's fine, it's fine. But if you do use gas, just got to check here. I have an awful feeling that this has not gotten. First thing to do is to check that there's actually gas in the canister. No, that's an old one. So let's put a new one in. So much the better. So much the better, because I can show you how this works. Again, not very complicated. If you do use gas, I suggest you get a one of these, which actually allows you to turn the flow on and off. So I've turned that off, obviously, and now the screw in the canister until the point I can feel it's nice and tight, so that should have pierced it. And now what we do is we undo this, which is already undone, and we put the valve on there and hold it nice and tight on. And then remember, this is going to get quite cold, so just gently inflate the tire. There she goes. And usually you'll find that one of those canisters will inflate the tire. That will certainly get you home, no problem at all. Another little tip, it's up to you. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, depends whether I remember or not. Is if you are going to use gas, is to maybe deflate it when you get home and use a track pump to pump it up, because the gas, the molecules are smaller in CO2 than they are in air, and therefore you can end up with a tyre going flat, or not flat, but going soft on a ride. So you don't really want that, depending on how long your ride is. Okay, so that's that. There's the tyre. We've all sorted, got everything done. All we've got to do now is put it back on the bike. So again, another reason I don't like putting the bike upside down is it's much harder to do it upside down, believe it or not, because you're all arse about face, yeah? Whereas here, you know where the wheel is going to go. It's going to go in the back here, and we know that that chain, because we adjusted it, is going to slot over the top of that little tiny cog. Now, as I say, the problem with this tyre, or this wheel rather, is that the dropouts and the skewer don't always align very well. So I'm just going to undo this. You normally shouldn't have to do this. Come on, hurry up. Whoops, there we go. I'll just put that out of the way, because the point is to try and show you how this works. So what we do is we get it on that little cog, and then it should, if we're very lucky, no, it's not going to do it for me. There we go. So you just pull this back, take the tension off it, and it will automatically sit on. You don't need to start fiddling around with the chain. All right, my hands are a little bit dirty, but they're not covered in oil and horrible and grease and whatever. Because I've got to put the skewer back in, unfortunately, it means I've got to put the skewer back in now. As I say, you shouldn't have to do this. There we go. But just whilst I'm at it, actually, you know the little springs, the cone springs? Whoops. The cone springs are there for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, though. Someone can maybe email me and tell me, but they're always there. And the main thing is that the thin bit of the cone points in towards the inside of the wheel, not out. If you point them out, they can get very messy. So there we are, there's just a little extra tip for you. Right, so we're pretty much done here now. I'm just going to tighten that up. There we go. As I say, you shouldn't have to do that. You should just better drop everything in. There we go. And then we just check that everything's okay and the wheel's aligned. It is. It's on the little, so I'm just going to change up to the bigger ring. There we go. Oh, now you can hear that there, possibly. Just means we haven't quite got the wheel aligned, but that's not a big deal. That's the brakes. We just undo it and realign it, and job done. Or you can do this, but I would probably just realign it because it's not quite sitting square in the frame there. So that's about it. That's how to change a lift tube.